Well, hello, hello, and welcome to the Charlotte Mason Enrichment Podcast. I'm your host, Elise Thompson. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We are concluding our little series that we've been doing over the summer called Conference Chats. Y'all, we've saved the best for last. I am so excited to introduce my guest, Miss Genevieve Gilstrap, to the podcast episode. We're going to be talking about handicrafts today. You can be excited, you can be intimidated, you could just say, I don't know what to do. And so that's why we are recording this episode for wherever you may land that range. So would you please help me in welcoming Genevieve to the podcast?
Hi, everybody. So as Elise said, I'm Genevieve Gilstrap. I am a mother of 5 kids, so it's always a little wild at my house, but we love art here, and that's, of course, why I'm here. I came to Charlotte Mason kind of, I think, just by God's grace. My lovely sister-in-law has been a member of the Charlotte Mason community in Tulsa for a long time. So when we were first kind of getting along with having babies, when I had my first one, I was really looking for community and other moms of like minds. So I actually have been part of the Charlotte Mason community in Tulsa for about 9 years now. Since my son was a newborn, we've been going and meeting people. And as you know, he's gotten older and we've actually gotten in the swing of schooling and doing all these things. I've picked up more and more. And I'm in love with the philosophy. I'm in love with the way that teaching isn't sterile. I'm in love with the way that everything is connected, because that's always kind of how I've approached life. And it was, by the grace of God that I ended up here, I think.
That's amazing. So it totally just aligned and connected with just some core beliefs for you as a person.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Especially in terms of how she valued not only book learning, but as we're here for, life skills, hand skills, and, connection with nature. It's all of these things and how they all go together to inform one another. So that's really attractive to me.
Yes. Tell us more just about your artistic side, because obviously you're a homeschooling mom but you have a past and a background with art and a love for that, because I might have forgot to mention, you're going to be teaching our watercolor class at the conference that's actually happening very soon. And so when Rachel Bird and I were, planning all the things, and I was like, I've never taken any class from you because you offer classes in our community, but I was like, but I can tell she loves art. And so would love to just know kind of your background with how you kind of fell in love with art.
So it started, I actually come from a fairly artistic family. My uncle was just a lovely man. He was an artist when I was a kid growing up, and there were some times that he lived in the house with us, and he would let me take his beautiful line art because he was colorblind and color it for him. So from a very young age, I was really attracted to drawing in particular. And as I got older, I practiced, and that was really the only thing I was super passionate about. So when it was time to, pick something for college, my family was not as thrilled about me being a fine artist. So I actually majored in graphic design, but I was very fortunate because the graphic design program I took was very old school. The professor that headed it was very interested in design and art as the basis for digital art, not just business stuff. So that was kind of where I came from. And then I later got a master's in art history. So I was studying, kind of the roots of all these different art movements. And my emphasis was in medieval art. So again, lots of line work and drawing and watercolor, actually. So maybe it's just been all together. But anyway, that's where I come from. And then after I graduated, I almost immediately had a baby. I was actually writing my thesis while pregnant. So right after I got out of grad school, I had a baby, and I was ready to do something. So when he was 7 months old, I went to work, and I was a public school art teacher for a year. And that was a very intense but wonderful learning experience. And it served me well, because since then, as I started having more kids, of course, I was like, oh, well, I need to stay at home now. And I wanted to be at home with my kids. But I've gotten to teach lots of different art classes, and that experience kind of helped with understanding, how to teach people and what they need. So
That's really cool.
That's where we are.
So tell me about, yeah, thank you. Tell me about, Charlotte Mason talks a lot about children being able to use their hands, create with their hands, and handicrafts is, kind of the umbrella for a lot of the skills that, one can learn like in their free time. So tell me, what do you understand, handicrafts to be in a Charlotte Mason education? Why do you feel like they're so important?
So I think, honestly, when I was thinking about this, hand skills would be actually a better definition of what she's talking about. Because when we think of crafts, I often think of kind of the physical equivalent of what she describes as twaddle, like something that's watered down. Like you can get a craft and it's, like a cardboard tube and all the steps are metered out for you. And there's not a whole lot of room for your own creativity in a lot of crafts. And I think that people feel that, and kids can feel that when it's watered down, and it's often something that people don't value. So when we say crafts nowadays, I think it has a totally different meaning than what she was meaning, because she's really talking about a broad range of skills that can serve you in life and that you work towards at a steady pace and that are valued by you and others because they take your individual time, they take your individual outlook and creativity. And like, not to totally, poo-poo, so to speak, crafts that you find on Pinterest. Like I love those things in some ways, and I think they have their place. But I think what she's talking about is more of an individual expression, more of and definitely like a slower, like built up over time. Just like we establish relationships with living books and time periods and historical figures over a long exposure. It's not just a one and done craft. It's something that you develop a relationship with, just like everything else in the Charlotte Mason method. It's not supposed to be just a touch and go. Now, having said that, there's a broad range of things. And I was actually listening to something the other day that was talking about the feast, even of handicrafts, exposing your children to multiple over the years so that by the time they're in high school, they have formed a relationship with something that they want to pursue more than the others. But you've given them that taste of lots of different things that they could pick from.
Yeah.
And I really like that it's not just art. We tend to think of crafts as just like art, painting, drawing, and those are very good ones. Like I'm teaching watercolor. It's very easy to get into. And a lot of people choose those because of that. But, leather working, macrame, oil painting, even things like picture framing. Somebody had a list and it had robotics and scrapbooking and spinning and cleaning, even like the details of folding, life skills that you master with your hands as a skill. So it's lots of things.
No. Man, okay. So I feel like you are honestly helping to set me free because I do just think of like arts and crafts when I hear the word handicrafts. And I automatically think I am so not good at a lot of crafty things. So what did you say to people who are like me, where it's like, man, I just don't have like a natural artistic bend to me. And I have to work a lot harder at making handicrafts happen. Like, what would you say to people like me?
Honestly, it may surprise you to think, me too. I do have an artistic bend, but even getting over the intimidation of being artistic in a group, like with my kids in a scheduled way. I write down a note that we're going to do this, and this term, and actually getting there is hard. And I think that's the struggle for most people. The idea is good and the getting there is a little difficult. But I would say, pick a couple things that are doable. I just had a baby this last year and our handicrafts were like baking and drawing, which my kids are already pretty proficient at, but just having it on there to know that we're working at something, and origami, simple things, and even things that are going to be life skills that you can build in. But I always try to pick something that my kids are interested in or that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I think that if you pick one term and you pick something you're a little uncomfortable with, it's helpful. It's helpful to branch out. But I would say, if like watercolor painting is like something that alarms you, or you're not, if it seems like too much, it may actually be too much in that season, and that's okay. I would say don't get so intimidated that you do nothing. Pick something that is doable, because I think that's really the point of my session, even just on watercolor. Doing something and putting in a consistent daily effort or weekly effort,
Mm,
some effort that is ongoing and helping you develop that relationship and that proficiency in some handicraft or a variety is what's going to give you
mm.
the joy later in that.
That's so good.
So,
Man, that's so good of just like you're building that relationship with something. And it's, I guess, giving yourself permission to say, yeah, you're probably not going to be great at it the first time you do it. But as you build that relationship and you keep, showing up to it consistently, you'll be able to see the fruit of that. But it took that like intentionality of, continuing to show up for it.
and I think,
That's really
sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was just saying that's a really great perspective to have.
Yeah, I also think it kind of goes along with another point I want to make and that I'm really going to emphasize in my class. And it's that kind of like Karen Glass says this in one of her books about narration. Not a single narration is the point. Like we don't judge the whole experience of narration based on one good or bad narration.
Mhm.
It's the extended effort and how we develop. I think people
Yeah.
go into handicraft thinking, we're going to do handicraft for 13 weeks. And each thing needs to
Mhm.
have a really great end product. Like I'm going to make this
Mhm.
painting this week and this painting this week and this painting this week. And they're all going to turn out as like frameable end works. And I think that we set
Mhm.
ourselves kind of up for failure in some ways when we do that because the idea of everything is a finished and like frameable end product isn't always really the point. It's the work of trying at that. So even if, this narration or this artwork isn't what we thought or as thorough maybe as we intended or as we even wanted, we're still developing.
Mhm.
So making that effort, even if each individual thing isn't quite what you expected, is still a worthy effort and something we should
Yeah.
pursue.
That is, man, so good. Man, you're preaching to the choir. Me right here. That is so great. So to the mom who says, "Okay, I'm not good at this," like you would say, just pick something and consistently work on it. And it's not about the finished product. It's about the journey and what you're learning along the way.
Yes. And
That is so.
pick something you're uncomfortable with within two things that you're already doing or two things that you are very comfortable with.
Mhm.
I cook from scratch every single day. I have 5 kids. So there, like I said earlier, there are seasons where baking, like everybody helps in the kitchen in the afternoon. So one of the afternoon pursuits and handicrafts is actually a life skill. Like we're learning how to help out and make meals and those skills survive into adulthood. They're going to at least know some basic things and
Yeah.
that counts. I mean, that counts.
Woo
Yeah,
woo.
I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy. If it's a life skill, you're building that with your hands, it counts.
Yeah. That is great. My kids love like making waffles and all these random things. And I'm like, "Oh, they have been doing handicrafts." And I just didn't click in my brain that that's what they were doing.
If they're not burning the waffles are getting better,
Yes.
we're doing it
They're edible.
consistently.
Oh, that's so great. Okay, so you're going to be teaching specifically watercoloring, but I know obviously you're going to be sharing some other really great, you know, practical things about just, whether it's watercoloring or any other type of, what did you call it? Hand skills.
Yes.
I think that's so great. Okay, so you were telling me, we were talking actually on the phone the other day, and you were talking about like investing in like fairly decent products. Could you kind of share with us just what's your experience? Because obviously, art is something that you enjoy. So like tell us, like, if somebody like, who's new, somebody like me wanted to dabble in cross stitching or wanted to get into watercoloring, like, what would be some really great advice about the products that we pick?
So it seems a little it can seem a little snobby because a lot of artists are like, oh, you have to pick this, you have to pick this. People do fall in love with particular things as far as what their favorites are. And I think people get a little daunted because art supplies can get pricey really quick. And it's hard to know because there's such a proliferation of them out there, like what is what. So this is a really good question. I would say to spend what you can and what you're comfortable with. There are tons of resources out there. I mean, the internet is just, it will boggle your mind, but you can, easily type in like watercolor supplies. And I mean, it'll give you a list, but I would always advise people to invest at least some. Like if you buy a watercolor brush that's $1 and paper that's $1 and watercolor paint that's $1, that's a really low budget and the experience kind of follows. No, there's a cap to that. Like, you don't have to spend a bajillion dollars to have a great time. But there are materials that will really kind of sink your experience. And I didn't know that for a long time. Like, for instance, particularly to watercolor, people don't realize how important paper choice is. There's a lot of watercolor paper out there that's just paper, like it's wood pulp. And watercolor paper is actually made of cotton fibers and it disperses water and it doesn't fall apart. A lot of people try watercolor, they get too much water on the paper and their paper pills and falls apart and they think, oh, I'm bad watercolor. Well, no, it's the cheap paper. It can't take the water. It buckles. So I would just, sorry, I'm getting a little technical there, but I would just say that it's important to know that experiences with art supplies, it does matter what supplies you get. You can do some and it can still be enjoyable, but it is a better experience when you do invest some money, even in your kids' supplies. Like I have the same paintbrushes as my kids and none of our brushes are that expensive. They're like less than $10 a brush, which I mean, and you only need like 1 or 2 brushes. So it's not a terrible investment, especially with watercolor. And I honestly, like the brush is the least important thing with watercolor. Your paper and your quality of paint are going to really matter with that. And I think there are things particular to all handicrafts that kind of tie into this. Now, I don't have technical knowledge of all handicrafts the way I do with watercolor supplies, but I think it's good to do a little bit of your own research. Ask somebody you know in your community who does that. Like, what have you tried? If I were to want to do this next term with my kids, do you have a recommendation? Or, you can bug Google. Google might give you too many results, but it is there. And sometimes I like to parse through it.
Yeah.
But I think tried and true people with real experiences, especially people well, will give you the best feedback on what to do. And now, thankfully, people who are here on this podcast, you and I, we're in hopefully a community full of supportive people who have done some of these things. At least somebody probably has done a handicraft you're interested in and can help guide you kind of on that supply journey.
That's good. Because I think a lot of times we think like, oh, this is something new I'm going to try. So I don't want to invest too much into it. But realizing that kind of going the extreme cheap route could really actually affect your experience. Like that's not something that I would have known either. So that's really, I felt like something important for people to know is maybe try to go middle of the road if you can. Like, I always think good, better, best. So maybe not, like maybe better would be a good option so that you can really truly get a good experience or a good understanding of like how it all works. So that's why I'm excited for people to take your class, because just those little nuggets like that can really help one's experience and just make those connections a little easier for moms. So I have one more question for you. As a mom of 5, obviously you're busy. How do you make time for yourself to make sure that you are prioritizing doing handicrafts?
So I will be honest, at some points we have not been as good as it as a family. This is actually, a confession, even as an artist, as a mom of 5, there have been times we have really struggled with that in our home. And sometimes we have done really well. So it just really depends on the season. I personally, though, do usually at all points in my life make something. I have a really hard time not making things, actually. It's so integral to who I feel like I am as a person. And one of the main things that has helped me to be able to pursue that, even with a bunch of little people running around, is confronting myself with my supplies. If I put my art stuff away and my house is immaculate and I don't see my supplies, I won't remember that I want to do that and make time for it. So done this a couple different ways, and I'm going to reiterate this at the watercolor class. I think it's really important to figure out how to make your space work for you with little kids and with art supplies. So when we lived at our last house, we had a 3-drawer baby changing table, and it had a removable pad. The top drawer of that my kids could not get into because it was too tall was my art drawer. And I would take the changing table pad off and I would get my art supplies out while they ran around the living room and played. And I would I would stand there for 20 minutes and watch them and paint and practice.
Wow.
And that was just how it had to happen at that particular place, but it worked really well. So I would say carving out a space where you can stand to look at your supplies or where you know they are, a place that you go frequently. It's like putting a list on a refrigerator. If it's not there, like meeting you in some place that you're going to frequent, it's going to fall to the back. You know, we're busy. We have school. We have kids that have appointments, kids that have to go, dinner to be made, laundry to be done. It falls to the back burner because it is important, but it's not critical for the day to go on. But if you put it somewhere though, and you see it, you're much more likely to make time to, you know, even for 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, getting it out. And especially with watercolor, the last probably 5 years as our family has grown, that's like the one thing that's doable. I can draw in my nature journal or like on a piece of paper, or I can watercolor because all you need is a brush and the paints you already have and some water. It's not a whole setup and the cleanup is quick. So handicrafts that are quick and especially not daunting to set up and put down are kind of best for seasons with lots of littles.
Yeah. How did it make you feel when you were so busy, but yet you made time for something, that wasn't a chore or to do? Like, how did that make you feel?
I think it makes you remember that you're a person. Like it forces you to remember your own personhood. I think as moms, we so often can lose that in the kind of the daily grind. As wonderful as it all is, it's really easy to get lost in the needs of others. And it always reminds me of my own agency, of my own ability to act in the world, of my own soul, my own personhood. And I think that's really important.
You have needs too.
Yes, and it does. It fills such a need of doing something for yourself, for joy, for relaxation that's not kind of a dead experience. Like I can watch a movie for myself. I can listen to a podcast and I get a lot out of those things, but I'm not physically doing anything. And there's such a difference between listening and mental learning and even talking to others and doing something with your own two hands. And I think that's why handicrafts are so important. And Charlotte Mason makes such a big deal is we have the ability to act physically. It's not just our minds. And we need to, as people, to act and to do something. It may be art, it may be some other skill, but we need to be doing something. I think as people, we feel best when we have found something to do that fills that for us.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. It is true. It's like there's a sense of accomplishment and joy when we use our two hands and we create something. It's a beautiful feeling. So I love that you described the joy and really it felt invigorating probably for you to do something, for yourself in the midst of all of life's demands. So yeah,
I'll share
that's so
funny.
Great.
When I had only 2 kids, I had a little one and my husband, he's wonderful. He would take my older son, who I think was 2 or 3 at the time. And when my second son would go on my back, I have pictures of me painting this enormous acrylic painting in what was then our studio. And I had my son in a sling or on my back. So the sling had like big smears of paint on it. And he was there asleep and I was painting, and my husband has pictures of it somewhere, but this is all to say, like, it's doable. You can carve out time for this. Like, you sometimes have to get creative in just making the effort to get creative, but it can be done.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I would love to see those pictures. That's so great. Well, Genevieve, thank you so much for just sharing your perspective and your wisdom. I know that it has really encouraged me to, not make it too complicated, but also to stretch myself to try new things and to build that relationship, because that's one of the key points of a Charlotte Mason education is that it's the science of relations. And so really great to be able to just to make that connection. And so I'm excited for you to share at the conference. Your class is definitely one of the more requested classes. So I'm excited for all the moms that are going to get to watercolor with you and to learn from you. And I just want to remind everybody that, when we're recording this, we are it's the week of conference, you guys. It is here. And the good news is that obviously it might be a little too late for you to come to Tulsa, but you can tune in virtually and participate in Genevieve's class. She's going to be a fantastic instructor. So whether you're in the classroom or you're watching on your computer and you've got your good paper and your brushes and your paints, you'll still be able to follow along and do the class with her. Or if you're listening to this later and the conference has already happened, you can get the replays and take her class. And so I am so excited. If you still would love to join us, you can virtually. You can go to charlottemasonenrichment.com/conference to get your ticket. And I am so excited. I'm definitely going to pop into your class. And I know I'm going to learn something so great. Well, that is all the time that we have for today. I just want to remind everybody that is listening, just like Charlotte said, that the only true education is self-education. So we're never going to stop learning. We're never going to stop growing. Even if we're not good at it the first time, we're going to keep trying. And so we're just committed. We're lifelong learners. And so I look forward to learning and growing with you on the next episode.